On day 2, there was a very sharp change in the whole nature of what was happening in that prison.
I'm inside! Out! Out now!
I had really thought that I was incapable of this kind of behavior.
In the summer of 1971, a basement at Stanford University set the stage for one of the most infamous experiments in human psychology.
I started the Stanford Prison Experiment.
Led by psychologist Philip Zimbardo, the Stanford Prison Experiment was intended to last 2 weeks. However, within just 6 days, it descended into chaos. All of the participants were white middle-class college students deemed psychologically normal. Each was to be paid $15 per day for their participation. Through the flip of a coin, they were randomly assigned roles as either prisoners or guards. Then, their fates were sealed.
My agenda was to be the worst guard I could possibly be.
The prisoners were blindfolded and relocated to the makeshift Stanford County Prison. There, they were stripped and assigned new clothes bearing a number.
I was a prisoner, and my number was 416.
Come on, try it then. Okay, you're going to be in there for a while, so just get used to it.
Within a mere 24 hours, the atmosphere had turned hostile and abusive.
Having so much power over these poor defenseless prisoners, maybe, you kind of get off on that a little bit.
The guards embraced their roles as oppressors, while the prisoners attempted to assert their independence, reminding themselves that it was only a simulation.
Is that what you thought this was gonna be? You thought you were gonna get some playtime in the yard, boy?
The guards aimed to strip the prisoners of their sense of identity, with some believing that this was the true purpose of the experiment.
There was one prisoner that decided they would go on a hunger strike and he wasn't going to eat, so we withheld food from the rest of them.
A rebellion ensued, during which the prisoners barricaded themselves in their cells and removed the numbers from their clothes.
It evolved into a confrontation, the guards showing the prisoners who's boss.
In response, the guards' tactics became brutal, stripping the prisoners, subjecting them to degradation, and depriving them of basic necessities like sleep. They resorted to intense psychological torture to break the prisoners' will. They throwed the rebellion leaders into solitary confinement and rewarded the compliant prisoners with a privileged cell.
I've never screamed so loud in my life, never been so upset in my life, and it was an experience of being out of control.
What followed in the ensuing days was a descent into tyranny.
We were able to pretty much isolate each one of them so they felt that they could not rely on their fellow prisoners.
The prisoners became increasingly submissive, with some pushed to their psychological breaking points.
I decided that this wasn't worth it, and the sleep deprivation was a big part of it.
Zimbardo, immersed in the experiment as the superintendent, lost sight of its ethical boundaries. It took the intervention of another psychologist to jolt him back to reality.
We should have ended it after the second prisoner broke down. And so I said, yeah, you're right, we'll end the study.
After a mere 6 days, the experiment was terminated. The fallout resonated globally, and the experiment continues to be studied to this day.
You can see where it was really harmful. It was degrading, and that was part of my particular little experiment to see how I could...
Your particular little experiment.
Yes,
Why don't you tell me about that?
I was running little experiments of my own.
Zimbardo argued that it underscored the power of situational forces to override individual morality.
And we proved in a very dramatic way that situations and systems have a much greater impact on human behavior than we want to believe.
For some participants, it served as a sobering awakening to their own capacity for cruelty.
I don't look on it as an experiment or a simulation. It was just a prison that was run by psychologists instead of run by the state.
Others condemn the experiment as scientifically flawed. Despite the controversy surrounding its methodology, Zimbardo maintains that the study remains a pivotal contribution to the field of psychology.